Hi everyone, Nick and Chris here, and we just have a little video tutorial on how do you do project management with GitHub, Gitpod, and Trello. Okay, so we'll be demonstrating a lot of important use of, especially in Trello, and it's going to be a main means of, tracking your progress and having transparency with the workload and how things are being done. It's a very powerful tool in that regard.
Yeah, and it's something that we'll be using a lot for the project course, right? So it's a relevant demonstration.
It's going to be the main reason how you're assessed, and so please pay close attention. So we're going to do this in a kind of scenario. So we try to go through the things that have a similar experience from what you all also have. And this example of a project, really simple one. It's a movie app project. You want to learn about movies? The solution is to a movie app to just be able to browse the movies. Two main features, just a movie listing, and you want to be able to view the movie's details. The good thing about this project is that there's already an API here that's providing the movie data for you, so you don't really need to build any of this. And we could look at this API. So I hope everyone understands what we mean by the term API, but for those who may not know, websites can access data via something called an application programming interface. So it's called a RESTful API, and it just simply means it's a server with a set of URLs, which you can make requests to get data. You may need to build out an app. So this is the movie app here, and first thing we're going to do is start by we have the project here, and we're going to break this down into some user stories. So it's always good, in your project documentation to define that.
Yeah, right. And usually the user stories is where you start to think through how your thing is going to work, right? So it's just like any program, you usually start with trying to design the solution in your mind and make sure it sort of works on paper, and then you sort of get into the process of building things out.
Now there's going to be different ways and different languages in which you can write them. So sometimes it's as a user should be able, we just go in one here, right? So should be able to scroll through a list of movies and should be able to view movie details, right? Two main user stories, but one thing you have to be aware of, your tasks, you're going to have many tasks in your project, right? And user story is like a starting point, but when you start to work through them, you're going to find that the other things you're going to need to set up that will be, actual work that should be recorded. So that's our user stories. Now we're going to create a Trello board. So Trello is our software management tool of choice. I'm going to just use probably my personal boards here. Just going to create a board. Let's call this app. Right. Should be good. I'm going to add my collaborator one time. I like to. So we're going to use this, the idea is using a Kanban board. And if you understand, a Kanban board is organizing your task in these categories, and these tasks are moving through the categories. So usually I like to have a resources. This is just to link anything that's necessary. Okay. So your first resource is usually a project doc. Here. I'm going to copy, share this link. The rest of the team could use it. So it's really good to link Google Docs or Word Office Online Docs documents it, so you can update it and you have one floating version that's always being revised, as opposed to just drag and drop in a static file here and having to re-upload it constantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it also helps when you're coming along at the end and you sort of put everything together in your project document. You essentially have a rough template of everything and every single link, every video, all the resources that you use in one place. And you could just go there and it makes writing the final document a little easier.
And Trello has a lot of integration, so I'm seeing this Google Drive integration. I guess it doesn't really help. It doesn't really hurt to enable it. It just makes it probably easier to open it or what have you. Right? Gives you previews and what have you. All right, so the first one, I'm gonna populate. This will be a to-do, right? Or sometimes we call it our backlog. And we could have miscellaneous tasks here, right? So one miscellaneous task would be to set up. Suppose now you may have a project where you have multiple coding components, so you have multiple repos. So sometimes you'll need more than one repo. In this case, you just have one. I'll add myself to it because I'll get this task done right now. Now, one thing you really want to do is make use of checklists to be able to break down your tasks into smaller tasks, subtasks, so you'll be able to track the progress. This one doesn't really need a checklist, so you want to get into that right now. And you want to make use of your labels too. So the labels is a nice way to categorize them. I like to use a label for this one. You could probably call it miscellaneous. So these aren't really coded tasks, but they're important. Right? It's a miscellaneous task. That's in to-do. And then we can have more feature-driven stuff, right? So this would be view list, which is one of the main user stories. Now it's good to be able to have these things, have some kind of reference for them, right? So if you have user stories that are numbered like this, let's reference them inside here. So this is user story 1. Or another approach could be to put unique numbering for every task. So this could be task 1, and then the numbers apply to everything, right? In this one, we'll just number our main user stories so we can just see the features here. This label would be to the main component. So sometimes you can have different components. We call this the movie client, right? Need to view a list of movie titles. API, we could break this down. That's movie data. And this checklist kind of breaks it down into steps. And you can make another checklist for features called user acceptance tests. So these are the things that steps that the user could perform on the application for them to validate and say, yes, it's working. Right? So this should be in a language that a user can understand. And it really can't talk to any deeper implementation details that a typical user wouldn't be privy to. Right? Should be able to see a list or full list of titles on the page. I think that's straightforward.
And one thing you should note about this process is something that you would be doing iteratively every week when you have your meets, right? So when you meet with your supervisor, we could see the progress, and you could also sort of plan out what the next tasks are and sort of rough out the these individual steps that you need to do to get it done. Sometimes you might get it all right in one go, but you could always edit it as you work on the task and you realize that, hey, it's getting a little long, and then you could take that one task and break it off into 2 or something like that, right? So it's not like it's sort of set in stone, but it's just to show you like how you would start with a rough plan and you iterate as you go along.
Sometimes we could just name it sub task. It makes more sense to do that. Yes. remove these fields. So remove these. Page, right? So we will get Chris to do that. So it's very, 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 very important that you properly assign who is primarily responsible for these tasks. Right? So, and in your sprint meetings, you're gonna create these tasks and you're going to assign them. Now, which is also good to do is to attach some kind of deadline to them to help manage it, and this is going to be based on your estimates. Okay. Especially if you have tasks that follow up from this. So it's good to be able to set the expectations to the team when this will be completed, so other members can schedule the follow-up task accordingly afterwards. Right. That looks about right there. So so we have our backlog and we have in progress. Right. One thing I highly one thing we really want to pay attention on is the definition of done. What do we think or what do we mean when we say that something is done, completed? Right? You need to be very clear, and it's something that the team needs to have a consensus on. And what could really help with that is that you have a review stage. So one approach you can take, or it's probably the recommended approach, is that you cannot mark your own task as done. So if you completed something, you're going to put it in a review and have another member move it to done, and signifying that they have reviewed it. They've probably done things like they're able to do the acceptance test. I didn't add acceptance test here, and actually passes the acceptance test. On the movie title. These details on the page. So when someone else is able to perform these acceptance tests, right? And these acceptance tests could be really different depending on the kind of task. So this is a very front-end UI task, so it's going to read like that. But the task could be more back-end driven, and you just have to need to define some way on what are the operations that somebody will need to do, given that the task is complete, to verify that it's complete. Right? Right, so we have review, and we finally have complete. Right, so I'm going to go right ahead and set up the GitHub repo. I'm going to go to github.com. That's our Git service of choice. Create a new repository. Call it the app. I'm going to make it public. Create it here. Right. At this point, it can set this up. Can I set this up and get part of this point?
I guess it could.
Yeah, I think it's created. So at this point, you want to go to getpod.io, which is a cloud IDE of choice. Of course, you could work on local machines, but it's really recommended to use a cloud IDE because you could easily share it with other team members and get to collaborate. I'm gonna continue with GitHub. Make sure I sign in there. Hopefully I don't need two-factor authentication. Right. You can create a new project. Load your repositories. Of course, I already linked and signed up create my Gitpod account, right? So these are steps that you all have to do. Okay, a good movie app is here. So, space. So this repository is going to be totally empty. Usually with front-end web projects, you're going to need like load. It's going to be an NPM based We can then initialize the NPM project. Although we will provide templates, so you don't have to do all these things from scratch, right? That's why. Right.
Yeah, and these steps here that we're doing is just sort of relevant to your project, right? So if you're doing something that's not totally web-based, like you're building a game or some kind of mobile something, your steps here would be different. But this is just essentially you set up your working environment and you start writing code.
Right. So yeah, probably went through that real fast, but don't worry about it. This is basically creating a web page and running it. I'm using a package called serve, which will run it in Git pod. It's important to be able to preview it. Now you want to click on the ports down here. You want to make it public by clicking this thing here, and then you want to open it in your browser by clicking here. And this is the page that we just created. So load. So this is the web page. So let's just go back to Trello here. So anytime it's going to be in review now, right? An acceptance test would simply to be that you can, view the repository or that all the collaborators are added. Okay, so maybe you could put it there as a checklist. All collaborators can access the repo. I wonder if I didn't add Chris just yet. So I'm gonna go here.
Yeah.
To access people. Here we go. Let's see, he's now on the repository. So he can make changes. Right. So Chris can verify that he's a collaborator and he can access it. So he will take this off and confirm that this is completed. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and we're gonna try start the first user story of viewing that movie list. Put that in progress. Now, before I do it here, very important, you always want to add a deliverable or reference the deliverable of the task. So it doesn't make sense to say completed Git repos without linking. I mean, it makes sense to link the actual Git repo to it. So it's going to go over here and just copy the link. So every task must have that deliverable. You could add it. Add comments as tasks develop, as you get difficulties or anything changes. It's always good to use this comment section to add that context for the rest of the team. Just put it in. So
yeah, I think it's supposed to have a pop-up. For the Git, right? Yes, automatic. Right, there you go.
See it? Yeah, sometimes it auto prompts, so let me just go back. Yeah, that's completed. I'm gonna add it's gonna do our first commit here, right? So this movie app is gonna need a number of things. We're gonna use materialize. It's gonna be the code fit. Plate code. Do a reload here. And this is how it looks. So we kind of get a shell going, and this will be the first commit. So how you make a commit in Git pod? It's really simple. We use the side here. Let's see, first commit. Gonna add this plus to stage all the changes. Then you're gonna do this tick to commit, and then you're going to want to click push. Right? So be very careful. You need to make sure and click push. Let me go over here and we do a reload. We have our repo. Something I forgot, every repository must have a readme, right? So a readme.md is a markdown file. Talks about the app. Must always have how to run. I'm gonna do that with serve, right? So serve is the package that we're using to run the website. So enable to record your dependencies in package.json. You want to use this command npm install /save serve. Right, so now serve is installed here, and we can add a script. So just serve. Or when people open up this project, let me cancel off the serve here. You can just say npm run start, or probably just npm start actually, and then we'll run the project for them, right? So these scripts are really useful, and then you'll do one for testing and building and deploying, right? So any command you'd otherwise put in the command line, you could just make shortcuts as npm scripts and then execute them by simply saying npm run script name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just read. This is called Markdown. It's a markup file format, and this is how it would look. Here we use formatting. It's simple. Yeah. Run by executing npm run start. So you just add some instructions here. Now you'll notice when we install serve, it's going to create this node modules folder. That is your dependencies, and we don't stage them in the repository, right? So we can get them from being ignored. We can ignore them. We can allow or configure GitHub to ignore it by creating a .git ignore file, right? And you just say node modules. Right, and you see it becomes inactive here, and when you want to push changes, it's not going to track changes in that folder, and that's what you want to do. You want to make sure and ignore that, because these files aren't important, in a sense that you need to keep them in the repository. The package.json is what you need to stage, and it will always generate your node modules for you. The second commit here, just to make sure that's all. Make a quick sync changes, and then it goes up. Okay. Okay, good. So at this point in time, I'm going to build my feature, and Chris is going to build his feature at the same time. Git really allows this through powerful tooling, through a feature that's called branches, right? So it allows us to collaborate on the code base and organize our contributions. So that first push was just the first commit for the repo, but from here it's kind of going to diverge. So we have our main branch. I'm going to create my branch, which I'll put my features, and we recommend that you all work in branches, just so you can manage your contributions. I'm going to create my Nick branch, and Chris will create his branch that he'll work on. And to switch branches,
Nick, you add me as a collaborator because I'm not create the branch. Let me just refresh. Hold on.
I got a link here. Maybe I'll send you this link.
Yeah. All right. Invite bandit. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Cool. Got it.
Right. So branches. Now the different ways you could switch the branches here. You could go down here, and you'll be able to check out a branch. and look at saying Nick here, right? So I'm going to that doesn't work. Then slash Nick maybe. Great, so now I'm on the Nick branch. So that means any of the commits I make from this point on is going to be on that branch instead of me. Right, so the next thing I want to do is add that listing feature, right? I'm going to just update my code here. It doesn't really matter what my code is. Not going to go through it now. On start, I'm going to run the site, give a little reload. And now we have this nice list of movies, right? So from here, I would have completed that task, and I'm going to go ahead and commit it. Movie listing. Have that, commit, one push. Please check out our branch. Push origin. Right. Now, I've been going in the command line, but if you want to avoid the command line, what you can do is open back this repo in Gitpod from the branch. So what you can do here is go on Gitpod, switch to this branch, right? Go on GitHub, sorry. And then you could just add gitpod.io/#, and it will create a new IDE based off of the branch. And then from that point on, it would be a little bit more straightforward in committing and merging, right? Right, so now I have two workspaces on the same branch. So I just made the commit to my branch. So if we go back and GitHub, I have to go back here. Right, you're gonna see this branch is one commit ahead of main. So at this point, I finished this feature, and I kind of want it to go back into main. And the collaborators would have, I'll put it in review. I didn't assign myself. Put it in review. Chris will check it off, verify that I do these things. I did these things in the code. I request movie data and render movie data. He would have verified it. And in wrapping up this task, I'm just going to give the commit, the actual commit of it here, right? So completed movie listing. This is the commit ID. So basically, this takes the actual changes that I made is on this link. So I'm going to actually link it to the task just to show that, okay, this is done and this is where it's done. I should take the whole right. So that's like everything there, and then that's complete. Well, before we move to review, we want to get that onto the main, right? It's going to show 3 recent pushes, and that's what a pull request is. So a pull request is where you take your changes from a branch, and then you're requesting it to be pulled into mains. You go compare and pull requests, and it's good to have other teammates or collaborators review it, right? So added the movie listing to create that pull request. Right, now what Git would do is try to see if there's something called merge conflicts, whereby the changes that you're making is conflicting with what was already there, right? Right, so don't worry about the get part stuff right now. There were no merge conflicts, so you can merge conflicts and confirm the merge. Right, now you can't delete the branch, but as I intend to continue working on this branch, I'm going to leave it there. So now when we go back to main, you would see a commit was done with my changes from my branch from the pull requested. Okay. So Chris also has a branch, right? And he just completed the view movie detail stuff, right? And just for you all to see, right, the effects of, and he already would have moved it into review, right? So I can go and use acceptance test it. So this is my stuff, right? So now I'm now looking at the result of his branch, and yes, we can actually click on a movie and view the details. But here you're kind of seeing divergent divergent implementations. So yes, you got the movie details working, but because my task was more on the listing, I more have the styling of the listing, and we kind of change the color to green. Okay, so you want to merge these two things together. So Chris will make a pull request. Yeah, completed movie detail. Right? But you would notice because we have some similar implementation and some divergent implementation, something that's called a merge conflict. And the tooling around merge conflicts and handling merge conflicts have done better over the years, so much so that we can actually do it in GitHub here. So we're going to resolve the conflicts now.
Yeah. And sometimes depending on the IDE that you use, they may actually have buttons that would highlight over the code to, accept incoming pieces or reject outgoing pieces just by, one clicks. So, you should always consider that feature when you're selecting an IDE.
Yep. This is how it looks. It's going to show the file, and it's going to show like which lines are conflicting with each other. So main has this line, and Chris has this line here. But I know that the main code, right, has the proper styling for this, right? That line of code happens to talk to this here. So we're going to accept main's version. So that happens in a merge conflict. Sometimes you're accepting code from one branch versus the other source. So that's what the conflict resolution is all about. So we're going to just delete this, and you're going to need to delete those other lines here, right? Until it's just the code. And although it should be get movie here. So actually that was a bit of a merge between the two. So it should be get movie, but it should have this class, right? And Chris has display movie versus get the movie I have here. So I just made a placeholder because I didn't really implement those details. So I'm going to move what I had in main and accept Chris's version of get movie, right? And we're going to accept Chris's display movie function. Right, and at that point, all the conflicts should be gone. That's resolved. Now we can commit the merge. Check. Up. Now leave that branch. So now we could go back to main. Right, so let's look at the final output of that app. and then we will look at that third branch in a moment, right? So I can go back here and probably we'll switch it back to, mean, go back to origin mean, right? And I want to perform a pull. So I'm going to go and get, pull it, and this should take all the new stuff from me. And it looks like there we have get movie and everything. Let's go to npm run start. Reload. Oh, it's like I had a bit of an error with this here. Got the green. Give me a momento. For the movie list collection, right? Full collection. There we go. Right, so we merge both of our implementations into this, and this is the final version of the app. Both of these tasks are now done, so move them in there, and that is the implementation of a very simple project. Before I'm finished, we had a third, so we probably have a third member, in a sense, Rob. Rob had his own branch, but his branch started all the way from the second commit. So we would have done merged two features into main while Rob is still working on this. So if you find yourself in this scenario and you want to get up to date with what was in main, you can do something called a fetch upstream. Fetch upstream probably works more with forks rather than branches. It doesn't look so like we could do it on a branch. So what I would suggest is just when he finishes the feature, just do the pull requests and see if there's any, see if there are any merge conflicts at that point.
Yeah.
Another approach could be he could create another branch from a later commit and then copy code over.
Yeah.
Your code from his older branch into it. Okay.
And usually the workflow would be would be working at your IDE or your desktop. So usually you would just, so the same way that you merged online, you would just pull down changes from the repo, and then you would have to manually manage those merge conflicts on your branch that you're working with. But usually that's something that you would do either through the command line or with your IDE, and it would have that tooling set up, because that's a common thing. Because you don't want to get too far behind master or the dev branch, especially if they make some breaking changes to stuff that you're working with.
But I think that's what we wanted to cover. Hopefully this video has been informative, right? Make sure, it's always really good to add these comments here to add discussion, right? So sometimes you don't really make progress in the subtasks. Sometimes you don't create other tasks. So it's good to add the comments and explain what has been going on. You want to be able to know what happened otherwise. Okay. So I think that's it. Chris, anything else we should?
No, I think that covers it really. We'll send out a link that'll give you a little more detail from Free Code Camp in using the GitHub. But generally, once you're managing your code, we strongly advise that you use this combination of Trello and GitHub to make everything accountable, and we can see what everybody is doing, you plan things out. It's easy to roll back changes, especially if you make a mistake. And you don't have to keep track of 10 different versions of your code and that kind of stuff, right? So it's worth it to try. If you're now starting before the semester kicks off, you could probably just try your own basic app as a group, right? Just so you get familiar with multiple people working on multiple things and then bringing it back together, right? Because it's really, really important to do that. It's quite efficient. It's a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning, but it's not too hard. So please try out a baby project with your supervisors or before even you meet them. Get that rolling, and then you can start using these two combination of tools to get your project off the ground. All right, so hope you guys learned something. Yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome. All right. So until next time, good luck, everyone.